free-for-all out there. Anyone they hit, they're getting paid for.
And what is the reaction of the people? I can only imagine fear, but then, as we've been talking about with our guest, a lot of people seem to have lost their fear at the moment in the Arab world.
There is fear, but there's an unprecedented amount of bravery. And I mean, when push comes to shove, the Libyan people are really holding their ground. They're creating makeshift barriers and blocking them from coming into certain areas of the streets. Last night when we were driving out, we were stopped multiple times, confirming who we were, what we were. They warned us to slow down and put on our, hazard lights. And it seems that they've really taken control of the streets. But right now, I'm not sure what will happen tonight with the new shipment of mercenaries coming in, along with planes shooting at protesters and the military coming in doing the same.
Are you fearful yourself, Adam?
Yes, actually. I've driven by. I wasn't in the midst of it. But driving by from the highway, you can see them. Down at the Green Square, you can hear the sounds. We've seen the planes overhead. I mean, these are things we have seen, yes.
That's Adam on the line from Tripoli. He's been out on the streets viewing what's been going on in Tripoli, hearing about, as he describes it, drive-bys, mercenaries as he termed it, zooming by in their cars, firing apparently indiscriminately out the windows, which, if confirmed, would be quite extraordinary. So the 40-year rule of Muammar Gaddafi appears to be increasing doubt. Earlier reports said the Justice Minister has resigned over the deadly force used against protesters. That is after one of Gaddafi's sons vowed to fight to the last bullet to annihilate dissent. Demonstrations, as we've said, spread to Tripoli, where at least 61 people have been killed this Monday. Let's wrap it all up with Lawrence Lee.
Although these pictures from Tripoli have only just emerged, they're from the weekend. But what they purport to show mirrors the latest information from the protesters. Banks being looted, police stations on fire, dozens killed. Reports from the capital suggest plans for a demonstration this evening to converge on the compound where Colonel Gaddafi is based. Trouble is expected.
From the cities and the places around Tripoli, they are coming to Tripoli, and the people living in Tripoli all together, they are getting out. And I'm expecting it will be very, very big massacre this night, because they are trying to surround the AlJazeera place, which is where the leader is living there, and this is the main place for the security people for this country.
Earlier pictures from Tripoli suggest violence but give little idea about who's winning. Gunfire can be heard, but then again recent pictures to come out of the second city, Benghazi, also showed protesters being attacked and hurt. Yet just a few hours later, more emerged, which appear to back up claims by protest organisers that the city has fallen to the demonstrators, who are busy reorganising local governments.
It is no longer under military control. It is completely under the demonstrators' control. We're having the tribal leaders chipping in, everybody's chipping in to try to set up civil committees to run the city. We have already successfully set up a committee to protect the subsidized goods warehouses, which are paramount because they have the flour and grains which are necessary for the bread in this city.
Libya's leader has allowed himself to be filmed in recent days in front of his supporters, but has said nothing. His son did, though, warning in the strongest terms that the man who has run the country for 40 years won't go down without a fight.
The leader, Muammar Gaddafi, is leading the battle, and armed forces are with him, and tens of thousands are coming to Tripoli in his support. We will not give up Libya. We will fight until the last man, the last woman, until the last bit of energy.
Tough talk, but in other places as well, the protesters seem to have weight of numbers behind them. This is said to be the town of Al-Baida, where funerals for dead activists attracted thousands. This place, too, has reportedly fallen. But there's no question that Tripoli now holds the key to Colonel Gaddafi's political survival. Whether his regime has to rely on mercenaries, as has been alleged, which way the army will go, are crucial. It feels like it's coming to a head, though with two sides in this fight, it's certainly a different situation to Tunisia or Egypt. Worse could follow. Lawrence Lee, Al Jazeera.
Let's return to some of the international reaction. You heard Rory Challens talking about what the British Foreign Minister's been saying. EU foreign ministers as a whole have been meeting in Brussels. That's where we join Jackie Rowland. Now, Jackie, what's come out of that meeting?
Well, yes, I think that what we've seen here in Brussels during the course of the day has been very much an effort by the EU to retake the initiative in terms of the rapid events that have been sweeping across North Africa in the last month or so. The EU and the US were criticised for, if you like, not gauging quickly enough the public mood during the uprisings in Tunisia and in Egypt, and they're certainly moving to make amends now, really being quite clear and categorical in their condemnation of what's going on here. Anyway, let's hear directly now from the EU Foreign Policy Chief.
We also discussed most recent events in the region, including in Bahrain and in Libya. And I've already said we're extremely concerned by the events that are unfolding in Libya. We condemn the ongoing repression against demonstrators in Libya and deplore the violence and the death of civilians. We call for an immediate end to the use of force against protesters and for all parties to show restraint. Freedom of expression, the right for peaceful assembly, are human rights and fundamental freedoms for every human being and should be respected and protected. Those legitimate aspirations and the demands for people for reform should be addressed through a meaningful, open, Libyan-led dialogue.
Jackie, is this the EU very much speaking with one voice, or are there any dissenting voices within the bloc?
Well, I'd say that the Italians did strike a slightly different tone, and that's because Italy has, of all the European countries, the closest links with Libya, not only because of the history, the colonial past, the Italians being the colonial power in Libya, but also modern-day economic and other relations. Italy takes 20% of its oil from Libya. I mean, Libya is a major exporter to Europe, and although there are a number of European countries that take oil, Italy is Libya's biggest oil customer. Apart from that as well, there's the question of immigration. Italy, and in particular the island of Lampedusa, are of course at the front line in terms of Europe when it comes to immigrants, particularly illegal immigrants travelling from Africa to Europe. And the Italians have been dependent on the goodwill of the Tunisians and the Libyans to patrol their coastlines to stop immigrants from crossing the waters of the Mediterranean. And so the Italians are particularly sensitive to anything that might upset the Libyans and might affect their cooperation, particularly in this vital area of combating illegal immigration.
Jackie Rowland live in Brussels for us with the European view. Thank you, Jackie. Salman Sheikh still in the studio with me. Let's talk about this, because you can have all the condemnation you want from the EU, from Britain, from the US, whoever. Bottom line, is anyone in Libya going to listen?
No, they're not. But it is important, I would say, that from the international community, the Libyan leader hears loudly and clearly that now's the time for you to leave, and your actions are being watched very, very closely. There is no impunity. Having said that, you're right. The momentum is on the ground. It's on the streets. And rather like we saw, I think, even in the Egyptian crisis, there was a period just a few days before Mubarak's ouster where things looked difficult. And I think this is what